Buffett has always chosen wisely when it comes to getting the best possible return for his money. So the bulk of his fortune, 75%, will be invested with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation.
They have this identical goal that every human life is the equivalent of every other human life.
Describe how you chose the areas that you chose and why you chose those when there is so many government programs, let's say for education or indeed for global health.
Well, we looked around and saw that the greatest miracle that had happened for everybody on earth is that as health had improved, it not only saved lives, it reduced sickness, let kids be able to learn, but that also led to the stabilization of the population wherever good health was created.
And also, we really started with the premise that all lives have equal value, no matter where they're lived on the globe. So if that's Bangladesh, or that's Boston, or that's in Britain somewhere. But in the US, we feel the greatest inequity is education, that not every child in this country is getting a phenomenal education, and they ought to. That's the civil rights issue in our country.
So their goal is to make students college ready. And they're funding school programs that boost student involvement, reduce class size, and enhance the performance of teachers.
Where do you think education can make a change and a difference?
Well, the biggest thing would be is if teachers were getting lots of feedback about what they're doing well and what they're not doing well. And if the incentive system encouraged them to teach other teachers when they're doing it well, to learn from others, and so the average quality would go up.
Bill and Melinda Gates have just returned from Tennessee, where they gave $90 million to help overhaul that state's school system.
We talked to about 10 teachers who were willing to be videoed in the public school system in Memphis. And they say, and some of them have been teachers for a long time, and they say, watch my video with me. And you sit down and watch the video and they say, look at this, I was doing great teaching this lesson, and look when I lost that boy in the back of the classroom. Look at when I lost that girl. I needed to let the kids have a break at that point. I needed to teach my lesson in a slightly different way, and I'm showing it to my other peer teacher to compare our lessons. They want to change the craft of their teaching and get better, and that I think is remarkable.
And does it trouble you that in terms of where American students are in terms of university graduation, that they've gone from 1 now down to 12 over the last several years?
You know, if you say, okay, of all the kids that start in 9th grade in high school in the United States, you say literally only 1/3 are ready to go on and succeed in college. We're leaving behind 2/3 of our US kids in the public school system. That to me speaks right there to what the problem is that's broken, and it's got to be fixed. You can't have a democracy where only 1/3 of the kids participate, and that's why we're so focused on the issue.
You talk about democracies, which obviously they're elected officials who are meant to be taking care of these kinds of things. Are you stepping in because our democracy is failing in this regard?
No, there's been a history in the United States for several centuries now where an approach that's more innovative requires some extra funding to get going. And so the idea of charter schools, at first, they required extra money. Some of these new curriculum approaches require some extra money. The work to measure effective teachers, to pay for the videos that Melinda talked about, they're not going to take that out of their normal funds. So maybe they should have more experimental money, but they don't. So the role of philanthropy is to make that possible. Now they get to decide which of these things really work, and they get to apply the big dollars, which is their regular spending on these students. Our role is catalytic to let them see new approaches.
When it comes to health around the world, their focus is on developing and delivering vaccines for diseases that affect millions of people everywhere. In fact, they've poured in nearly $15 billion.
You're hoping to develop an AIDS vaccine. Do you really believe that that's possible?
We think in our lifetime we will get an AIDS vaccine. It's not an easy problem, but you have to work upstream. The only way we're ever really going to get at AIDS is with a vaccine. We might get an interim tool for women that they can use, a drug, a pill that they could use to keep them from contracting AIDS. But if you want to solve AIDS, you can't just treat all the people with it. You've got to get a vaccine.
The Foundation's philosophy is that you must take high risks in order to reap high returns. And so the Gates Foundation funds cutting-edge and experimental ventures that government agencies, which are beholden to taxpayers, may not.
What is it about the foundation and how you back ideas that you think you can do that where so many others have failed?
The United States government is the biggest funder of an AIDS vaccine. We're, I think, the second. And so there's a lot of different approaches that are getting funded.
And just this week, the National Institutes of Health announced what they called the most significant breakthrough in years. Tests showed that a new pill taken daily dramatically reduced the risk of AIDS amongst high-risk gay men. It was paid for by the NIH and the Gates Foundation.
We are particularly helpful when we can gather the right group of scientists, take a long-term point of view, and keep the visibility of the impact as high as possible.
Bill and Melinda Gates' 3 children are rarely photographed, but they have traveled with their parents on their overseas trips.
How do they react when you take them to some of the abject poverty that exists in this world?
I don't think you can go into an AIDS orphanage and not leave a changed person. And so even though the orphanages that we've been in South Africa with them look really nice, they know at the end of the day, when we leave, those children don't have any parents. And that affects a child deeply.
Most people assume that they're going to leave whatever they've made and whatever they've done to their offspring. But you don't feel that way.
Well, I don't think it's a favor to a child or to society to have immense amount of wealth bequeathed to them simply because of the family they're in. You know, they want to develop their own identity, their own excellence, and you know, clearly they're going to get some benefit in terms of going to great schools and broad exposure, but then have a chance to make their own way.
Yeah, and I think, you know, what we've tried to instill in our own kids is that with great wealth comes incredible, enormous responsibility.
Billionaire turned philanthropist Ted Turner agrees.